Are you stressed about your content strategy? Do you ever wonder if you're doing it right or why it's not working? I got you. We have messages about your content strategy, not how to do it or who to follow or what technique or what strategy. This is really about what is the best way that it's going to work for you and what truly is your business trying to tell you about the content strategy that you have going and how it's really meant to work so that you can feel good about what you're putting out there and feel successful and feel like people are hearing you and that you are connecting. So today we have 7 messages about your content strategy. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about what content strategy is. Everybody has a different content strategy, but overall what I was feeling about this was how you share your message, how you're communicating to your audience, the things that you're making that communicate. So that could be Instagram Reels, that could be podcast episodes, that could be writing, that could be newsletters. So it's all the things. So I would really come into this and bring forward in your heart and your mind the different content strategies that you're currently doing or even the ones that you're thinking about doing and seeing what messages you're getting from here. As always, your heart knows the way, so really let that heart be open and receive whatever messages are meant for you because they're not all going to be super for you, but within them, I'm sure you're going to hear and feel and know what is truly for you. So let's go ahead and get into our 7 messages. Message number 1, your strategy is meant to look unique and different. It is not going to be like anybody else's because you are unique, you are different. You can get inspired and get excited about other people, but if there is any feeling in anything that you're doing that, oh, well, I'm going to do it this way because this is the way it is done, that is going to get you in trouble. So it's going to be like, well, this is the way a newsletter is written, or this is the way a podcast is done. That is going to get you in trouble. It is truly about what is unique to you, right? I mean, I have a podcast that in many ways is very different, right? And I've done all the other podcasts. I've had many interview podcasts, and because that's how it was done. And for a while I liked it, so that's how I did it that way. But ultimately I was getting bored of that format and, really thought like, what is like my unique way of doing it? I hired a podcast specialist to come up with a new format. And that is how my last podcast called Ask Nikki Novo, that was very short-lived, came to be because I was like, oh, well, let's let somebody give me an idea. And it was a really great creative idea. And I will definitely be bringing some of that back as I switch up the format. But like, I didn't come up with it. It wasn't mine. Like, it wasn't my dream. It wasn't my format, my setup. And that's why it didn't work for me a long time. So ultimately I had to sit like, okay, if I do have this thing, a mic, and I'm going to record, how would I want to show up? What do I want to share? How do I want to talk? And I was like, well, the ways that I do it in the reading. So that is my unique way. And that doesn't mean that it has to be totally different because obviously we're not here to reinvent the wheel, but there's a difference between feeling inspired and being like, oh, you know what? I feel like I want to do it like in that format versus like, oh, I have to do it in this format because that's how it's done and that's how people are telling me to do. So that's the first thing that I was coming through, and it's just not going to be the way. Message number 2, when you're going in to actually make the content, whether it's like I'm going to go write the thing or I'm going to film the thing or I'm going to speak the thing, do not go into the energy of like, oh, I need to do something that people are going to like, or I'm going to make this reel in particular because I know people are going to like it. While that will maybe work, it is a little bit of a lower vibration from like the vibration that you're truly meant to come from. The higher vibration to that is I'm looking forward to connecting and conversing with people. So it looks like the content that's really going to make you feel lit up and content that at the end of the day works, that like is doing what it needs to do, is going to be a conversation piece. It's going to be something where like people want to interact with you, which is funny because of course at the end of the day, like we don't even look at likes or watch times or anything like that. We're looking for interaction. How many people are interacting with you? So while people might want to interact with you, there might be something that like you are going out there and not being open to that interaction because you're more just like, oh, watch me, or you're watching me and I hope, you're going to like this, or I'm making this because I have a feeling you'll like this. And that is my intention rather than my intention is like, I'm going to put out put this out and be excited to see like what conversations come from it, who is connecting with me. So, which is normal. I remember when I first started writing, I was just like, I'm going to write, and then I don't want to hear anybody's reaction. I don't want to hear anybody tell me if they like it or if they don't like it. I at first was just like too scared to even get any feedback. So I just would put things out there. But what happens is energetically that closes me off from conversation and dialogue, which at the end of the day, that is what makes good content. So seeing if we can remove any sort of like people pleaserness in us, any sort of, thinking that I'm doing this because like strategically people are going to like this and this is going to work well, but more like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to put this out and like, I can't wait to see what you think. And like, I can't wait to see what you say. I can't wait to see like what conversations we're going to have because of this thing. So it's a little bit more collaborative than, oh, I'm on stage and like I'm probably not even that great on stage and I've asked nobody to clap, or I don't even want anybody there because I don't want any feedback. So I'm going to go on stage and I don't even want to, I'm going to do my dance, but I don't want anybody to see it. Where there's a difference like, oh, I'm going to go on stage, I'm going to do this thing, and like I can't wait to connect and talk and see like what you thought about it. And maybe when I dance, you dance, right? So think about going to like any concert. Like the idea is that like the person that's singing is getting you off your chair and getting you to dance. Like you're so excited to connect with them. And that is really how we want to come about when we're making our pieces of content. Message number 3. There's also this other vibe that's coming through that is like almost like a shadow vibe. And it's this vibration of thinking that you have to make content, that there's a responsibility to making content. So it's like, oh, I have to make a podcast episode every week, or I have to make a piece of content because that's the only way my business is going to grow. And it's coming with this grown up responsibility, like blah, 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 like not fun at all. And that vibration is really killing the reaction or the connection to the audience. Or instead, and also it's like almost like a disempowered way of seeing it, because you do have choice. You do not need to make content, right? Like you can completely run a business with no content and do well. People have been doing it forever, and there are tons of people that do well with no content. You are making a choice to do content. And that choice then moves you into, I'm empowered, I have choice, I don't have to do this, I want to do this. And it looks like when you come from that place, most importantly, it's going to be like, I want to do this because I love this person that I'm making the content for. So or it's even like, I want to do this because I love content. I want to do this because this is fun for me. I want to do this, but really I saw like the highest vibration is going to be, I want to do this. I want to share this because I love the person that I'm sharing this with. So you might, when you make your piece of content, think of a person that you really love. Maybe it's like, oh, I'm making this for my best friend, or I'm making this for somebody that I've worked with before, or like this person that has bought my item before. I'm making this for her because like I just love her. Like I'm excited for her to continue on her journey and to continue being like the hero of her own story. I'm so excited for her. So I love her so much and I want to tell her more. I just want to keep talking to her. So I'm making this content because I'm excited to keep chatting with her. So when I sit down to make the content, I'm thinking, number one, I have choice, and I'm making the choice to do this because I love the person that's on the other side, and I'm excited to have more conversations with the person on the other side. Message number 4, I was getting that your content could use a common thread, almost like a bigger story. So you may be almost like looking at your content pieces as like individual pieces, and they may feel a little bit like disorganized or something. And it does look like categories or like common threads are going to be more helpful. So maybe like series, or maybe I'm going to write a series on my adolescent years, or like like almost like if you're writing something and you're going through different times, like almost categorizing them is how I saw it as well. And also maybe let's say you're handling like an Instagram page and seeing like what is the bigger story to this Instagram page that looks like that's going to be helpful. That sometimes like it almost looks like the pieces working on each other, and telling a bigger story is what's really going to work. That seeing them as individual pieces is like really stressing you out, and it almost is making you feel, I don't know why, but it's like taking the joy out of it. It's going to be like more joyful when you see themes or categories. So it might even be like doing monthly themes or, weekly themes, whatever it may be. And that just looks like people enjoy that story format, and that you end up being more creative, because it's almost like you have such free range as to like what you can create, that you're not as brave as you could be if you were like, to this week all we can write about is love. And you'd be like, okay, cool. And like you really dig into love, and it almost looks like it's a smaller cage that you can go like really into, as opposed to this like big open cage of like, write whatever you want. That seems very overwhelming, and almost it kind of keeps you smaller than if you would just know the little cage that you're in and like grow really into that cage, and it helps you like almost take up more space. So yeah, those categories or those themes or that bigger arching story looks at that will be very helpful. Message number 5. For those of you who are writing, do not underestimate your writing. Do not underestimate your words. It almost looks like those of us who are called to writing feel like there is no worth in words anymore. And I'm getting that that people are absolutely reading. They're just reading in a different way and in a different place. And the reader these days are the slow consumers. There's like going to be this movement to like slow consumption or slow consumers. It's already happening. People are consuming slower, it looks like. And these are people that understand that when they go into Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, it's very noisy. So they are looking for other places to consume. That's why there's going to be like a resurgence of like magazines and like physical newsletters and all that. So do not underestimate that. People want, your writing is almost like a meditation. People want to sit quietly and read something slowly in an enjoyable way, and that is going to happen more and more, and you may very much be at the forefront. But where you write is important. So it's funny, I'm on Substack, and I do like it, but it almost looks like Substack in itself is now also getting loud, that it is better if you're writing to write on a newsletter, like your own email, to write on your own blog, on your own website. I was also even seeing like text messages, like if you could get people's phone numbers and you like send them a PDF, not even like not the writing like in text, but almost like you sent, I don't even know if this is possible, guys. I've never done, marketing via text messaging, but it almost looks like I would rather just like get a quiet PDF in my text. And when I have time, maybe before I go to sleep, I'm going to read this PDF. So do not undervalue your writing. This is a slow consumer, and there's a lot of opportunity in the slow consumer movement. So if you do like writing to really, it might sometimes, obviously slow tends to be slow. So it tends to be more expensive sometimes. It tends to be that it can't grow as much. So, you might move into making a physical newsletter, and obviously that's going to be pricier than putting something up on Instagram, but it also is more valuable. So there is a ton of value in your writing, and that's important for you to know, to not like hide away from it almost looks like, and let's say you are writing, but like on Instagram, it looks like it's a break in somebody's like fast consumerism, that they get like, oh my gosh, like something I have to slow down and read, and to have like a slow reading moment. And that is not only is the content like, informing them or having conversations with them, but it's also helping them achieve another goal, which is like, I want to slow down. I want my brain to be able to focus and all that. So to not to not be afraid of that, and almost to advocate for it. Be like, oh, no, the reason I write, I like to write, but also I'm like an advocate for it. I think that like it is important for us to slow down and read words. I think I learn better because I see things. So to be a little bit more, and I my sense is that you might be like, oh, but I've been writing, Nikki, and that's not working. My sense is because you're like, don't find that it's important. And when you're writing it, you are not like thinking about like drawing the person in. So you might be writing a little bit more for yourself rather than writing and being like, how can I really entertain this person who is already very busy? So it makes me think, like, if I'm going to write something for my 7-year-old, I can't keep calling him 6, and he's like, I'm 7. I'm like, I really want to keep him 6, but my 7-year-old, I would sit there and be like, yes, I want to write, but at the same time, I want to write for my 7-year-olds and I want it to be entertaining him. So I might write about like a character that I know he already likes. And I might write short sentences and put like a lot of pictures, but I do believe that I can get him to read my entire writing, right? So it's like, I'm not going into it being like, nobody's going to read my writing. If I have that feeling, then I'm just not writing. I'm not putting as much effort into it as I'd like to admit. Like, I need to be like, who's the person reading this? How can I really get them as out of love to read? Because let's say I want my son to read, like out of love for him, I want him to read. And I believe that maybe he's not reading because everything he's reading is overwhelming or is boring. And I want him to like have a love for reading, right? So a lot of the things as adults now that are being written for us it's the same shit that we like read in our SAT essays. They're like, what the F? Like, nobody wants to read these essays, And are we being one of those essay writers by accident? So knowing that your task is to love on the person that reads your type of thing, and to really be like, to challenge yourself as to how can you get them to focus on your words because it is good for them. And like, you are offering them a service. Like, how amazing is it to feel that I just read a long thing? Like, you feel great when you do that. So you're doing that for your person. Message number 6, it seems like there's just not enough effort in collaboration, and your content needs collaboration. This is, the time of the Aquarius, like this is all about collaboration. It's all about, groups and getting together and all that. So it just looks like there's just not enough effort. You might be trying and putting a little bit out there, but not a full, really trying. So for me, for example, there are some people that I really want to talk to on the podcast, and I've reached out once and I haven't heard back. But that's not enough, like, I know that I would love to bring certain conversations to you guys. I know you guys are like, no, we just want to hear Nikki. But no, I promise you, it's going to be fun. And I just haven't put enough effort into that, I'm like, oh, they haven't gone back to me. I've reached out, and it's like, it's just not enough effort. So really putting more effort into like the right collaborations into your content, that seems very important. Collaborations are going to give back in a way that they do seem a little bit more complicated, for sure. And it's not really about sharing so much like audiences. The collaborations look like they show other sides of you or other sides of the business that actually tell like a bigger story. And it looks like because they show you from other angles, these collaborations, then other people come in. I'm thinking about recently I was in New York City and I was doing a interview with my friend Olivia of Organic Olivia. She has a podcast, What's the Juice? And we did a different, and also with Almost 30, we did like a different interview style where it was just chatting because we are friends, we know each other, right? So it shows a different side of me because it's not like, okay, Nikki who shows up, who delivers these messages, or Nikki who does other podcast interviews and is like being interviewed and like, you got to show up. And this was like more like a relaxed version. It's more like a friendly version of me. It's a conversation. So that is going to appeal to different people because, and it tells like a bigger story of like who Nikki really is, if that makes sense. And also shows myself what else I have to offer. So that looks like why the collaborations are also important, because they show more of you, they show more of the brand, and it kind of just like opens up new opportunities. That's what I see. Obviously, the obvious opportunity would be like, oh, we get to share audiences, but it feels bigger than that. And lastly, message number 7, to remember that there's 2 types of content. There is content that you make for new people that you're hoping that they'll discover you and they'll find you, and then there's content that you are making for your people. And you're gonna have to kind of feel into what each piece of content is for. The content that is for your new people, the people that are discovering you, is going to be similar to speed dating, right? So when you speed date, I've never sped date, but I have an idea because I've watched enough shows, right? Like when you speed date, you have a limited amount of time. You have 2 minutes to like tell your story and hopefully like hook the person or the person hooks you, right? And that's what this looks like. And this is where people seem to get the most annoyed because, of course, we all love long content. We'd all love to make long content. But long content is something that is more for the person that already knows us. It's for the person that's already dating us. It's for the person that's already in relationship with us. And the short content for like the new people is more of that speed dating thing, which is why it's hard. So it feels like the speed dating, like the new content people, it's very hooks, and it's very like capturing and like little like tricks that like you wouldn't typically do. They're like lines, you know what I mean? I was watching this show. Do you guys watch that show Harlem on Prime? I was watching that. And this hot guy starts talking to one of the women, and he's just like full of lines the first 2 minutes as they're talking. He's just like giving lines. He's like, oh, this in your eyes and this blah, blah, blah. And he's like, are you interested in enough? And it was such a good example of short form content. Like she was like, okay, yeah. Like he had given her enough lines that like just made her be interested enough to have the next conversation with him, and then the next conversation is a long form, and it's like we're already in a relationship, we already know each other, you're willing to hear me in a longer form. So having to know that, and sometimes unfortunately maybe when we're growing the audience, we are doing a lot of short form because we don't have too many people, so it's going to be like more short form, maybe 75% short form, 25% long form. And then as the audience gets a little bit more balanced, maybe we do 50% short form, 50% long form. And of course, the dream, which people do ultimately get to, is 75% long form and 25 short form. Because it's like 75% is like all these people I'm in relationship with. So I can do the podcast and I can talk about all these like different things about myself and people listen. So to be aware of that and to not have ego about that everybody goes through that, and to really ask yourself like, what's the most comfortable way for you to do that speed dating? Like if you were in a place where you had to speed date for 2 minutes, like how would you do it? And I know some of you would be like, well, Nikki, that's why I'm not on dating apps. That's why I don't do these things. And I hear you. And I'm like, I can hear your ego, so let me see, how do we combat that ego? And I think like in dating, it could work to like not do those things because you only need one person. But in business, you need several to keep your business going. So you're doing it because you know that's what you signed up for. That's part of what you signed up for. So it's a bit of like a maturity of knowing that this is just part of what we do, and finding a short form content that really works for you, because you have to try many different types to be like, oh, okay, I'm really comfortable with this like carousel thing. Or whenever I kind of bait them with listen, the Monday reading, which I've been doing for years, that was it's a little longer now. I guess it's always been long, but it was very baity. It was very much like when I first started, it was cards. It was like, okay, I'm going to have one card, I'm going to have two cards. And even the visual of that made people stop. They didn't need to know who I was. They were just like, oh, this showed up on my feed. I want to hear this person, explain one of these cards. Like maybe there's a message for me. So that was very much like they didn't care who I was. Obviously, to listen to my podcast, you kind of have to like my personality, like the way that I deliver. But in the beginning, those cards were really baity in many ways. And it's funny, like if I wanted to continue to be baity with the Monday reading, I'd probably do the cards because it has a good visual to it. Well, right now, if your volume is off and you see me, you might just think I'm just talking. You might not know. But as we've added captions and been like, message number 1 is like, the caption, it kind of helps with what the card used to do. But it's pretty baity. And that's just like the way that it worked for me. Doing a short reel or like something, or even like a YouTube video, I'm trying to get better at it, but those are still hard for me to have like the clickiness in the beginning. So we try a lot of different things to see ultimately like what really hits for me, and we'll keep trying, and that's what we do. So just remembering to have that balance and to remember that there's like new people you're bringing in, and also keeping up those relationships that you already have. So through the podcast, I'm furthering a relationship that I already started. And, ultimately, as I further these relationships, perhaps we can go all the way and maybe, be in a program together one day, go on a retreat together one day, go to a live event together one day, because I've already created that trust and that relationship, and we just kind of keep going deeper and deeper into the relationship. So that's really what it's about. Okay, friends, those were my messages for today. I hope that was helpful, and just remember, your heart always knows the way. So I'm hoping whatever came through on your heart is what's for you. And I can't wait to see what you do with this information. Can't wait to see your content. And I'm sending you so much love, and I will see you next time.